A couple of things. Get it. There we go. We are good to go. We had a little bumps, but that's okay. We're good. Good morning, everyone. This is Carol, so AKA Naughty Boss, live with
TwoSistas. Good morning, everyone. It's Janice, AKA Wellness Diva 5.0. We had some technical issues. We were originally going on at 8, then we decided to go on at 7:30. And then we had tech issues and we're close to 8. So whatever.
It happens. Stuff like that happens. But today is Trending Thursday. There's a lot of stuff trending. You know, we hinted on some of that yesterday with our guest because I asked her some questions regarding FOIAs. We've got a bill and legislation that is stressing a lot of people out, which is not really good for our health and wellness, which is the infrastructure bill, which I'm not really sure. If someone was to say, if you could go in there right now with what's going on currently and ask them one question, my question probably would be, and there's a lot, but one of them would be, why are you calling it something when it's not? Because the infrastructure bill is, you know, that word leads you to believe one thing when actually the entire bill is only 25% of that. So I'm not really sure. I would like to call it more of a socialist bill, because one of the interesting things that we know that is going on, that everyone is buzzing about and what's trending is, you know, mask mandates, vaccination mandates, travel mandates with vaccination passports, New York with their little new passport of vaccinations. And where does it leave the average American, and how does it impact us, not only from a practicality standpoint, but as well as, you know, being sane through all this cray-cray that's going on. And sorry, I'm just sitting in the seat that I just can't seem to get my butt comfortable with. I know how many people relate to that. You sit down and you're at your desk and you keep fidgeting. That's what I'm doing. But anywho, so that was, you know, that's buzzing. But, you know, interestingly having a conversation early this morning, because in Worcester, Massachusetts, the school committee there now has officially voted unanimously made a decision based on no data, made a decision based on no studies, made a decision on no scientific backing, made a decision on, really, I don't believe gathering the information for what it is, because if you bother to take the time to be open-minded, there are so many great resources. And there was a Dr. Scott that did a presentation at a school committee meeting in, I believe it was Indiana, that really did a great job in explaining the science, but also really putting it back to the school committee that, hey, I realize you're not a virologist. You don't have a scientific background to kind of think outside the box. So I do understand. So he didn't come in there like berating them or making them less than. He really came in from a educational piece, which does have data and science behind it. So in Worcester, Massachusetts, the school committee, who's also implemented CRT, they've also are implementing CSE. I have to think of all these little different, you know, the lettering of what the labeling, which is comprehensive sex education. And if you don't know what that is, you better look it up. But anywho, so there's a lot of chatter and buzz going on, and that's what's trending because people are frantic. You know, parents are sadly in the Worcester area waited way too long to get involved. They were complacent. I'll just comply. I'll do what they say to do without really doing the research and the knowledge. And they are really setting the tone for other districts that are not as far as long as they are. And sadly, they're going to be used as the example of what not to do. So parents are now like all freaked out because the school committee did this. But you know what, if you're complacent and you're not staying involved in your school education, that, and I look at it this way, and I think back in the day, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, you sent your kids to school, you didn't have social media, you didn't have politics getting involved in areas of school, which it should not be. And you trusted, you knew that your child was safe for 6 to 7 hours a day being taught, what they should be taught from an educational perspective, mathematics, science, history, English, languages, as well as learning different peer activities and how to intertwine and communicate with your peers as well as adults. And you had that trust. But sadly, that trust has crumbled because, parents, what happened? It crumbled because parents got too busy, rightfully so. Most parents are two-parent household, working outside the household. You do have some homes that have a single parent running the household, and the demands are much different because of the way the economy is. And to really have and afford the things that you need to live on, a lot of people need to supplement and or have two incomes coming in. So you just kind of sent your kid off to school thinking, well, I don't have to worry about anything. But you do. And this has been happening it's been crumbling for quite a few years. The parents are just realizing how bad their complacency of just trusting these individuals. And I'm not saying it's their fault, but it to a certain degree, you bring children into the world. It is your responsibility to know who's teaching them, who's influencing them, who is stepping over the parental boundaries of what you want your child to learn and not learn. And so ironically, I was kind of going back and forth with a woman this morning who has a kindergartner in Worcester. And as I was explaining to her some of the things that her district is actually doing, that I've got actual factual paperwork on, I have the curriculum. She says, well, I don't have to worry about comprehensive sex education because my child's going into kindergarten. I'm like, yeah, there's a funny thing, because the fact that you're actually saying that is a big no-no. Because you should think of your children, but you should think of all children, right? And sadly, she doesn't know the curriculum in her own district, because I've got copies of the different chapters, the different lesson plans, and the page numbers of the books that they're introducing, where, hold on one second, because I got to clear my throat for this one. They're going to be teaching kindergarten through, the elementary school years. And I'm only going to give you a small excerpt because for our listeners, you're going to be a little like, what? They talk about, this, now you got to think of the audience that you're teaching to, right? K through 3, somewhere in that range. About a woman's vagina, a girl's vagina, and how they have 3 holes. They talk about the elasticity of the vagina, how a penis can, do this. They talk about self-pleasure. They talk about also the introduction of, liking the same sex person. They talk about a gamut of things that I think that most parents would be like, oh, they can't do that. What are they thinking? That's why I had to clear my throat, because I was yelling about it earlier. So my throat's a little dry. However, this is what's going on when you become complacent and don't get involved, don't go to school committee meetings and ask questions. So her original statement under this article, which if you want to Google it, you can go right ahead. So Worcester, Massachusetts, the school committee unanimously decided to go with full masking, which we already know there's no data, there's no science that supports that masks work. You can argue the point all you want. It doesn't bother me that somebody argues the point, because the point you're arguing has no knowledge, no data, no science, no facts to back what you're arguing. So if you're going to argue something, you better have a little arsenal of stuff that supports what you're arguing about. Most people don't, they don't understand that. So that's why the people that like, you got to do the good for all, which is a very communist statement. We've talked about that many, many times, that communist mentality about complying, socialism, really behaviors that our country is now displaying. And I'm going to tie that in with back to the vaccination passport, because what the infrastructure bill is talking also about, because a lot of people, you're talking about cars, well, that would be infrastructure, right? Well, they understand that most Americans that are not going to get a vaccination passport. It's over 50% that choose not to get the vaccine as it stands right now. And I hope that stays that way, because one part of the population are spreaders and one population is not. And there's facts on that, but I'm not going to go into that. So what they're going to do is they know that we aren't stupid, that we are smart. So most people said, well, if that is required of me, I'm not going to fly. Well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to tax somehow, and I don't know how the bill's written, I didn't read it all, that like if you travel with your vehicle, you're going to be charged extra taxes for the mileage that you put on your property, the vehicle that you own or lease. So that's what's trending. Aren't you glad you asked me?
Oh my God, yeah, maybe a little, just a little bit. But you know, here's the thing. And when you say follow the science, but that like that should be in the forefront, like the science is up here. Here's the left, here's the right. The science is here. So if you're going to follow the science and over here is not specifically following the science, I have to ask myself, you know, I think obviously this leads toward socialism, communist type of behavior, but are they doing it because, another flip side of that, are they doing it because they might, is there a liability issue for them? And that just doesn't make, it just doesn't make any sense, because if we all should be following the science, we all should be following the science. There's no, as you said, there's no data or documentation or legal studies. There are studies, and the name of this report and the name of it escapes me, and I know I'm going to butcher this up, that does not support children wearing masks for 8 hours a day. And I think it's called the MER something report, or, and I'll see if I can find that. And I had it written down. I don't know what I did with it, but it's around here somewhere. But that is an actual factual study that was done that says not only does it lead to health issues such as the child breathing in carbon dioxide, their own carbon dioxide for 8 hours, but learning disabilities, skin issues, you know, children with developmental type of learning disabilities that need to see the teacher's face, to see the expression on their face, to be engaged in a conversation with other children in their class, and not being able to see the expressions or how they are expressing themselves. Like I'm talking with my hands right now. You can see my face. Now, okay, now it's covered up. So like I can be like doing a frown, or I could do, like a child cannot decipher through a diaper on their face. Though all of those are specifically proven disabilities, or however you want to listen, drawbacks, that it is not good for a child to be wearing a mask for 8 hours. So now, if anybody has any information to the contrary, like maybe a medical type of report.
That's the problem, Jan. They don't.
Exactly.
They're just, there's none out there, because there's too many in the medical industry that are coming, they're obviously under fire. They're being censored. That particular Dr. Scott, who gave an excellent presentation, and I don't care what, you know, and the point people, everyone's, oh, let's not make it political, but you do make it political because it is politically driven. The NEA is a political driven, the largest teachers union is in cohorts with political ties. It is politically driven. Would it be nice if it wasn't? Sure. But the fact remains that a lot of things that are going on in our world currently right now are politically driven. So to, cop out and say, well, don't make it political. It is political, not by our choice, but by the choice of those that are trying to instill fear, instill propaganda. Now, another thing that I asked our guest yesterday was in regards to FOIAs. And so I got some good information, and I actually got more good information on that. But anyway, so I have received some information on one particular school committee, and I was flabbergasted at one of the things that was in the public records. And apparently, again, unbeknownst to probably many parents, this has been going on apparently since I want to say 2017, that they are or was or currently from 2017 to the present was using CNN to introduce, like current events and what's going on in the world. And I'm like, say what? CNN, like, first of all, I'm against any school introducing and or using media as part of education in the system, because media is so, and I don't care what station it is, they have a slant, they have a bias. That's just, it shouldn't be. We talked about that years ago, or we talked about that, I think last year, not years ago, we haven't been on for years, about like Walter Cronkite, when news was the news. Well, those days are long gone, never will recover. And I could not believe that was the source. Now, those that are educated enough, you have to be somewhat educated to make an educated statement to know which stations have a political bias too. If you don't, your head's in the sand. And let's face it, CNN is probably the National Lampoon or what was that rag magazine, National Enquiry. CNN is probably the National Enquiry of all news stations. And I think even those that were great followers of CNN back in the day will also agree to that, because I don't know, over the last 2 years, like every story of theirs, or a very high percentage, could have been really should have been retracted, and or a corrected report should have been as a result of them not doing their due diligence and do their job. And then, so you're using that, why not just use the National Enquirer then? Why not use one of those kind of magazines? I don't know. When I ever saw that in writing, I was like, what is going on with this world? You're introducing CNN as part of, getting your history and your information and your current events, to then use that as a source to teach children. Are you out of your flipping mind? That's my personal view, because I'm not a big news fan in particular on any station, actually. I had a few favorites, but you know what? I think that's the difference between someone that has a liberal mindset and a conservative mindset. Is that a conservative mindset doesn't mind calling who's ever representing them out. They call it as they see it, regardless of whose color they're wearing. Where liberals or the left, they stick with each other like glue, like paste, like they're conjoined at the hips, and they don't care what although I guess maybe with Cuomo they kind of stood away from him a little bit, but and which I think was a sideshow, and really that was just a distraction to what all this. He was, for me personally, I believe that storyline, which I paid very little. I actually didn't even know he resigned until hours after the fact. That's how little I pay attention to what's going on in his world. But for me, he was nothing more than a distraction of what was going on with Martha's Vineyard, what was going on in DC. They're very clever on what they consider as a big news source to distract you from what's going on with something else. And I think that's all that was. So what I'm getting, the bottom line that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to turn it right over to you, is that if you are in a district Sadly, it is what it is. You have parental rights, and it is your job to be the voice of your child that can't go to these meetings and speak up. They're too young. It's not their job. It's your job to be involved and to say, "Ooh, that's not going on in my school," when you actually don't have the facts. I mean, I'm not even in that district, and I know what's factually being taught there. Like, get your shista together, get involved. And you know what? Sadly, a lot of these things are happening in the Worcester district because people just figured, you know what, another parent will go, another parent will fight the cause. Well, shame on you. And these parents have a responsibility. And I say shame on you, because you brought these children into this world. It's like you're just throwing them out to the wolves, because God knows what, who's influencing them, who's teaching them. And you are now going to cause a ruckus. Well, what do you think has been going on in the last few years? Your rights have been slowly retracted because you complied. Sometimes trend setting is doing the unpopular thing.
Right,
So,
it most definitely is. But as far, I want to go back to the news media thing and how distraction. Let's be realistic here. That's their own news mask mandate that they impose on themselves because they have an agenda. I've been very boisterous about who I watch. I'm a big Fox News. I like Fox News, but every news media outlet has their own agenda. Let's be real here. Let's be realistic. That's just the way it is. I've also referred back to Walter Cronkite many times, and I still think that he would probably have a big conniption fit with everything that's flipping going on here. Something
a lot of people didn't realize too that I believe Walter Cronkite was a Democrat.
Yes.
You would never know that.
Yes. No, exactly. Exactly. So here's something that kind of segues over into politics a little bit. When I heard the news of Killer Cuomo over there in New York the other day, I thought to myself, East Coast, Cuomo resigns. West Coast, California, sounds like Newsom is probably not going to be the governor too much longer.
I don't know about that, because there was some, again, there was a little conflicting reports that said, but again, it's those polls that you just can't always trust, that said he had the lead. And I was actually kind of surprised, because I do know a bunch of Californians, and they're like, they can't wait for his time to be done.
So isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Well, because people, because I think at the end of the day, most decent human beings, politics is politics, but if it's not the will of the people or the majority of we the people, or for those that, have their heads in the sand and now they're, finally emerging from the muck or the quicksand and they're being pulled out, they've got a lifeline of other people that are like-minded individuals that say, no, I don't want to live like this. I mean, you look at, you look just over the last 6 months of where our economy has gone, where, rules, and when I say rules, I mean, you have to comply. I hate that word, comply. It's so authoritative, and, I don't know, could there be a kinder word out there? I'm not sure. But again, you associate that with a very communist mentality, and you even have Americans with a communist mentality, and they don't even know it, that they're spewing, you have to do what's good for all, what's best for everyone. Well, if you want that kind of mentality, go move to Russia, go move to, go somewhere else that, has that dictatorship of, and that embraces that kind of mentality. Our country is not like that. And while our country is going through a very difficult time right now from all avenues, I do believe that, I can never lose hope that we're not going to bounce back from this. The person occupying that White House will not be occupying the White House forever. Are these bumpy times? Absolutely. I think most conservatives can agree that there are many people that are representing in different states that really don't represent we the people. So vote them out and vote people in that do. And I also do believe that, people that have a different perspective, from the left are also waking up and saying, my politics are my politics, but how is this good for us as a people, as a whole? So you're always going to have that tug of war. And I think right now we're just in a, what's trending is that we're there's a tug of war going on with, what's going on in federal government, what's going on in local government, what's going on with, really the heart and soul of the family, because there's a lot of people within families that don't agree. There's friendships that don't agree. And I always say that if it doesn't, at the end of the day, if you find a relationship, regardless of what the relationship is, you always have to do what's best for you. And if it puts you in a healthier mindset to eliminate those people that are adding stress to your life, turning off the news, doing goodness for yourself and helping your community, being involved with your school, obviously. And this does not apply just to parents, PS. Anybody that pays taxes in a community is a stakeholder. And you should be knowing what your tax dollars are being paid for. So you also have a right, whether you're a grandparent or whether you're a stakeholder and you're paying taxes, to know who is elected and what they are doing to the future generations, because those future generations that they have so much impression upon of implementing what they learn are the people that are going to be in power when you're even older. So it is your obligation to know what's going on in your school systems. But at the end of the day, lock arms with people that are like-minded. No, you don't have to be exactly alike. No, we're not supposed to be. We're all supposed to be unique and different in our own ways. But, have kindness, have respect. And if there's a person that, they're so far off, from your values, turn them off, meaning you don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be just, put them to the side for a while, pause them for a while. And if you find it necessary, end the relationship. Just don't, it doesn't have to be this big drama thing, just end it. But ultimately you have to do what's best for you. It's our job to have ourselves informed and inform others, but it's not our job to bully somebody into a belief system. Either they believe it or they don't. They respect it or they don't. I like to think that TwoSistas, we are always open-minded to all kinds of avenues of opinions, even if we don't agree with them, because that's how we learn how someone else thinks and, or comes to a decision or supports what they're doing. So I think it's a good thing, but I think we've gotten so sidetracked because of instant news and and by the way, I very rarely, the only person on Fox News that I sometimes will watch, not even often anymore, is Tucker Carlson, or I do like Mark Levin.
Oh, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
But other than that, no, because to me, they're the same as all the other networks. It just, I'm just not a big fan. I rather listen to podcasts and, because then you get a real sense of someone is, and you don't have to worry about, because I think part of the problem with trying to trust these news sources is who is the powerhead that's running these corporations and what influence do they have on the narrative that the reporter does. And I think for me, that's the problem. It's the people that are the head of the corporation that are infiltrating what the reporter is supposed to do. And I would be interested, speaking of CNN, I would be interested whether they could, but again, they're so National Inquiry-y that I'm sure Chris Cuomo will be back, even though he's on vacay.
Yeah, so much more I could say about that, but just one quick thought before we sign off. As we've always said, we always appreciate viewpoints, and some of them are opposing, and we're okay with that. But I specifically remember a time, and I believe it was last summer, right around this time, when we had somebody who was on our live stream who, and I forget the topic of conversation. If I go back to it, I know it'll jolt my memory, but this person definitely had a different viewpoint. And when you are kind and respect somebody's opinion, especially when it's in real lifetime, it can be, I don't want to say a little dicey, but I took no offense to it. And I was being kind and respectful. And what what I learned from that is, no matter how kind and respectful for you are, sometimes the other person who is the one being that has the opposing viewpoint thinks that you're like patronizing them, and as a result of that was like the zingers were like unbelievable. So for anybody out there that's going to comment, just, we're always respectful. We appreciate opposing viewpoints. We respect them, but let's be respectful to the other person in return. So don't ever take it personally is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, also too, the other key piece to that is especially when you're running a podcast, we can't control how other people react.
That's right.
But sadly, they do more harm to their own integrity or that they're credible when they act very immature like that they can't have, okay, I disagree with you, and this is why, okay, I understand that's what you're saying, but I don't agree with this because of this. When you start attacking someone personally or baiting them to kind of get into an argumentative way, you lose all credibility because you're really as intelligent as you think you might be, or as an intellect as this particular person thinks she is. Sadly, it really lacked integrity. It lacked intelligence because it really showcased that she didn't have the perseverance and or the patience to be respectful. Because sometimes being respectful takes patience, takes perseverance, because you might be hearing things that kind of like pull a chill, what's that saying, pull a chill up your spine, or make the hairs on your arms stand up, or rub you the wrong way. But someone that says, you know what, I'm going to leave the emotion out of it and just really take face value what they're saying, that they truly believe it. And I'm going to be respectful of that. And that takes maturity. Sometimes it takes experience, but it also takes being postured and not letting someone like that, because someone like that has been doing those kinds of things all their lives, wheeling their way through one thing to another by thinking, if I make the person feel less than, I've got the upper hand. Actually, it makes you look really not credible.
Exactly. And it kind of, I don't want to say put a smirk on my face, but I thought, in a way, I felt a little bit bad for this person, that they felt that they had to do what they did. And, we wish this person well, hope she's doing well in her life. That's great. Opposing viewpoints, keep them coming. On that note, on this Trending Thursday, my name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, and I'm with TwoSistas,
and this is Carol, so aka Naughty Boss. We want you to be the trendsetters. Go out and see what's trending, but make sure that you are the trendsetter. Maybe the trend setting should just be being thoughtful and being kind. And also just not doing it. Like if somebody's coming at you with a viewpoint that is nasty and rude, show the upper hand of how someone that feels good and feels confident in what they're chatting about is able to kind of like, I don't want to say give you a pass, but just kind of let it go and let you spew what you're going to spew and still walk off, still feeling good, still feeling happy. That's what kindness is all about. So you do that, be the trendsetter, and we will see you tomorrow for a fantabulous Friday. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.